The world is changing. Robots are living with us, and I think that the nice challenge that we have today is to see and promote the way on how people and robots can live together and evolve together in real life.
Centauro takes its name from the mythological creature. Of course, it has this quadrupedal lower body which is combined with a humanoid upper body. Centauro was intended for an application in rescue and rescue scenarios, for which a robot with slow motions and really powerful motions are required in order to interact with heavy objects and also being able to operate with huge payloads, like for instance carrying a human or moving big objects from the way. At the same time, despite its appearance, it's a big robot, it's a heavy robot, it's also super powerful. Despite this appearance, it's also equipped with a set of sensors which allows a safe interaction with the humans in a way that mimics the muscle dynamics. Focusing on our work package in euROBIN, we are dealing with logistics and delivery robots, and these kind of robots are intended to be used in outdoor environments which are crowded and complex, so full of obstacles also, for which also the most refined controller sometimes can fail. And with the rise of the AI and the AI-based reasoning, robots are expected to take autonomous decisions, to understand the environments, and so to have this extra intelligence to be, let's say, as similar as possible to humans. For instance, let's take a simple example, a robot crossing a street can be a really straightforward action. But if we think about all the social and the traffic rules that there are, it can get really complex. Like for instance, crossing requires to cross on crossways, and you have to yield to cars and pedestrians that are approaching. When I said that Centauro is unique inside euROBIN is that it allows both things. We have a safe navigation layer, we can take steps, we can cross any kind of obstacles. And with the human upper body, we have two manipulators which can navigate with the robot, but at the same time are at a height which is comparable to humans, and this allows also a good level of manipulation skills in human-centered environments.